I was staring at a bill that could ruin my life, and my hands would not stop shaking. $38,000. In my name. Debt I never agreed to. Debt I cannot pay. I felt something break inside me. Not fear, not anger, something deeper. I trusted them with everything, my home, my future, my peace, and now I was losing all of it. My credit was destroyed overnight. My savings are gone. My plans erased like they never mattered. I kept thinking this had to be a mistake, but it was not. Someone close did this. Someone who knew exactly what it would cost me. I stopped crying when I realized one thing. They thought I would stay quiet. They were wrong. I used to believe my life was steady. Not perfect, but safe. I worked hard, saved carefully, and stayed out of trouble. I kept my world small. Home, work, a few close people. I thought that was enough. I thought that was how you protect yourself. My name is Sophia. I am 20 years old. I trusted my parents more than anyone. Not in a loud way. It was quiet trust. The kind that builds over years. They handled things. Bills, paperwork, decisions I did not question. I never felt the need to check. It felt disrespectful to doubt them. They raised me. They knew better. That is what I told myself. I was careful with money. I tracked every expense. I had plans, small ones, but they mattered to me. A better place to live. A car I could rely on. A future that felt mine. I did not ask for help. I did not depend on anyone. I thought that made me safe. Looking back, there were signs, small things I ignored because they did not fit the story I believed. They would ask for my details sometimes, my ID, my signatures on papers I did not read fully. It always came with pressure. Just sign, it is urgent. We will explain later. I told myself it was normal. Families help each other. I did not want to seem difficult. There were moments when they avoided my questions. When I asked about something simple, the answer would shift. A quick change of topic. A light joke to move past it. I felt it, but I pushed it down. It felt easier to trust than to doubt. My sister's wedding changed the mood in the house. Everything became about money. Stress sat in every room. Conversations turned sharp. Voices got quieter when I walked in. I noticed it, but I stayed out of it. It was not my place, I told myself. They would say things like, we have it handled, or do not worry about it. So I did not. I focused on my own life, my own plans. I thought I was doing the right thing by not getting involved, but something felt off. Small things did not add up. Receipts left out, then gone. Phone calls that ended too quickly when I entered the room. I remember once asking directly, "Is everything okay?" The answer came too fast. Of course. No eye contact, just a quick smile. I let it go. I kept letting it go. Until the day the letter came. It looked official. Heavy paper. My name printed in a way that made my stomach drop before I even opened it. I remember sitting down slowly, like my body already knew what was inside. I read it once, then again, then again. $38,000. A balance due. Payment overdue. My name. My signature. I stared at the signature for a long time. It looked like mine. Close enough that anyone would accept it. But I knew the difference. A small curve. A pressure point in the pen. It was not me. My hands went cold. I walked into the living room holding the paper, but I did not say anything at first. I just stood there. They looked up at me. For a second, no one spoke. Then I asked very quietly, "What is this?" There was a pause. Not confusion, not surprising, just a pause. My mother looked away first. My father leaned back like he was thinking of an answer. That moment felt longer than it should have. "It is just paperwork," he said. "Just paperwork." I felt something twist inside me. "This is my name," I said. My voice did not sound like mine. "This is a debt. $38,000. Why is my name here?" Another pause. My mother spoke this time. Soft, careful. "We were going to tell you." But they did not. I looked at both of them, waiting for something real. An explanation, an apology, anything that made sense. "It was for the wedding," my father said. Like that explained everything. Like that made it acceptable. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. "You used my name," I said. without telling me. "It is family," he replied. "We all help." Help. I felt the words sink into me like something heavy and wrong. "You signed this," I said, holding up the paper. "That is not my signature." He did not deny it. He did not even look at it. "It had to be done," he said. I waited for him to say more, to explain why, to show any sign that he understood what this meant for me. Nothing came. My mother stepped closer. "We will figure it out," she said. "Do not make this bigger than it is. Do not make this bigger." I felt my chest tighten again, but this time it was different. "Don't panic, not confusion, something sharper. This is my life," I said. "My credit, my future. You decided that for me." "You are overreacting," she said quickly. "It is just money. Just money." I wanted to say so many things, but they did not come out. I just stood there, holding the paper, trying to understand how everything shifted so fast. I looked at them, really looked this time. They avoided my eyes, at how calm they seemed. Like this was already settled in their minds, like my role in this was already decided. I felt something inside me go quiet, not calm, not acceptance, just quiet. I turned the paper over in my hands again, staring at that signature, that almost perfect copy of my name. And then I noticed something I had missed before, a second document attached behind it. My breath stopped. It was not just one bill. There were more. I did not react right away. I just stood there, flipping through the pages slowly, like moving too fast would make it worse. But it kept getting worse. The second document was another loan. Different amount, same pattern. My name, my details. A signature that looked like me, but was not. Then another page. And another. It was not one mistake. It was a system. My hands started to shake again, but I forced them still. I did not want them to see me break. "How many are there?" I asked. No one answered. I looked up. My father was staring at the floor now. My mother crossed her arms, like she was waiting for me to calm down. That silence told me everything. I went to my room and shut the door. I needed space to think, but my thoughts would not settle. They kept circling the same question. How long? I opened my laptop and checked my accounts. At first, nothing made sense. Numbers did not match. Balances were lower than they should be. Transactions I did not recognize. Then I saw it. A transfer from my savings. Months ago. Small enough that I must have missed it at the time. Then another, and another. They had not just used my name. They had been taking from me quietly for months. I felt sick. That was the first real crack. Not the big debt. Not the forged signature. It was the slow, careful way they had been doing it. Like they knew exactly how much to take without being noticed. I sat there staring at the screen, trying to make sense of it. Trying to find some version of this that was not intentional. There was none. I checked my credit report next. My chest tightened as it loaded. Accounts I never opened. Balances I never agreed to. Late payments. Missed payments. My score had dropped so low it did not feel real. Years of careful work erased in silence. That was the second crack. It was not just one event tied to the wedding. They had been building this behind my back. I tried to remember every moment I handed over my details. Every time I signed something without reading it fully. Every time I trusted them because it felt easier. The guilt started to settle in. I should have checked. I should have asked more questions. I should have protected myself better. But the deeper I went, the more I realized something worse. They counted on that. They counted on my trust. I went back to the documents, reading every line now, slowly, carefully. And then I saw a name repeated across multiple forms. A contact, not my parents, my sister. My breath caught. Her number, her email, listed as a reference, on loans in my name. That was the third crack. This was not just them. She knew. I tried to think of a reason. A misunderstanding. Maybe she did not know it was my name. Maybe she thought I agreed. But the dates did not lie. She was there when they asked me to sign those papers. She was in the room when they said it was just paperwork. She saw everything and said nothing. I felt something inside me shift again. Heavier this time, more final. I kept reading. One document stood out. It was older than the rest. Much older. Years. My stomach dropped as I realized what it meant. This started long before the wedding. That was the fourth crack. The wedding was just an excuse, a cover, something visible to hide everything else. I went back to my bank history again, digging deeper this time. Further back than I had ever looked. There it was. The first transfer. Small, almost nothing, but it was the beginning. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen, feeling like I was looking at a version of my life that was never really mine. Every plan I made, every step I took, it was all built on something they were quietly taking apart. I thought about every time I felt safe. Every time I believed I was in control. I was not. I was being managed, used, and I did not see it. I closed my laptop slowly, my hands steady now. Not because I felt better, because something inside me had gone completely still. I sat there in the quiet, one thought repeating in my mind. This was never going to stop on its own. I did not confront them again, not because I was unsure, because I needed to see clearly first. The house felt different after that. Every sound is sharper. Every word is heavier. I moved through it quietly, like I did not belong there anymore. I watched more than I spoke. They acted normal. That was the part that stayed with me. Meals, small talk, casual questions, like nothing had changed. Like my life was not sitting under a weight they created. I studied their faces when they thought I was not looking. There was no panic, no guilt that showed, just control. It told me this was not a mistake they feared. It was a decision they stood by. I stopped reacting. No anger, no accusations. I answered simply. I kept my voice steady. I let them believe I was still processing, still confused, still quiet. Inside, I was counting everything. I started with my documents, every paper I could find with my name on it. I gathered copies slowly, one at a time. I kept them hidden. Then I requested official records, bank statements, credit reports, loan agreements. I read every line now. Patterns became clear. Dates lined up with moments I remembered. Sometimes they insisted I sign something quickly. Sometimes they asked for my ID without explanation. It all fits too well. I wrote it down, not emotionally, just facts, dates, amounts, signatures, connections. It felt cold, but it kept me steady. There were moments I wanted to explode. To walk into the room and force them to answer. To ask how they could do this and sit across from me like nothing happened. But I did not. Because I knew how it would go. They would minimize it, turn it into something smaller, make me question my reaction, maybe even make me feel guilty for pushing back. I had seen it already. I would lose control. They would keep it. So I waited. The hardest part was the hesitation. The voice that kept asking if I was going too far. If exposing this would destroy everything completely. If I could live with that. They were still my family. That truth did not disappear just because everything else changed. I would sit alone at night, going through the evidence again, and feel that conflict rise. A part of me wanted to protect what was left, to fix it quietly, to carry some of the weight and move on. But then I would see the numbers again, the accounts, the signatures that were not mine, and I would remember that they never gave me that choice. They decided for me. That is when the hesitation would fade. I was not choosing revenge. I was choosing the truth. And truth has consequences. I started making calls, quiet ones, professional ones. I asked questions carefully. What happens in cases like this? What proof matters? What steps are taken? I never used emotional words, just facts. Each answer gave me structure, a path that did not depend on anger. I learned what they risked by doing this, what it meant legally, what it would take to correct it. It was not quick. It was not simple, but it was real. I opened a new account they could not access, changed passwords, locked everything down. I removed every piece of control they had without telling them. They did not notice at first. That told me how little attention they paid to me unless they needed something. I kept observing, listening, waiting for the right moment, because I understood something now. If I moved too early, they would adjust. If I stayed patient, they would expose themselves further. So I let time pass. I let them believe I was still quiet, still unsure, still the same person who would not question them. But I was not. Every step I took was measured. Every piece of proof was carefully placed where it needed to be. And slowly, without saying a word to them, I built something they could not talk their way out of. By the time they realized what I was doing, it would already be too late. I did not announce anything. I followed the process. The first step was simple. I filed a formal dispute on every account that was not mine. I attached copies of my real signature. I highlighted the differences. I listed dates I could prove I was not present. Work records, messages, Small details that added up. The responses did not come fast, but they came. One account was frozen, then another. Then a request for verification reached the house. Official letters, neutral tone, direct questions. I watched how they reacted when those letters arrived. At first, they tried to hide them. I noticed envelopes moved from the table before I could reach them, but I had already requested copies to my own address. I did not need what they touched. The second step moved outside the house. I reported identity misuse through the proper channels. Again, no emotion, just documents, timelines, signatures, contact links between accounts. It triggered reviews I did not control. That was important, because once it left me, it could not be turned into a family disagreement. It became a record. Weeks passed. The house grew quieter. Phone calls started coming at odd hours. My father would step outside to take them. My mother stopped bringing up money at all. My sister avoided being alone with me. No one asked me anything directly. That silence told me the truth was reaching them before I said a word. Then one morning, a bank representative came to the house. Not aggressive, not loud, just official. I stayed in my room and listened to the low voices through the door. Questions asked twice, details repeated. A request for clarification about signatures and authorization. The tone shifted slowly, from routine, too careful, too firm. That was the first visible crack. Later that day, my father tried to speak to me. He stood at my door, not entering, just waiting. "We need to talk," he said. I looked at him, but I did not respond. Not out of anger, because there was nothing left to discuss. The process was already moving. He waited a few seconds, then left. The next step came without warning. Accounts were officially flagged. Payments were paused pending investigation. Some balances were removed from my record temporarily. For the first time, I saw a part of my life return to me. Not fully, not yet, but enough to breathe. At the same time, pressure shifted to them. I could see it in small ways. My mother stopped making calls in open spaces. My father checked his phone constantly. My sister stayed away more often, finding reasons not to be home. Then a letter arrived that none of them could ignore. It required in-person verification. All parties involved. Names listed clearly. Mine, theirs, and hers. I left it on the table after reading it. I did not hide it. I did not mention it. I let it sit there. They saw it. I watched from a distance as each of them read it in silence. No one spoke. No one looked at me. That was when the weight shifted completely. Not because I confronted them, because the facts did. They could not explain this away inside the house. They could not reduce it to a misunderstanding. It was documented, tracked, reviewed by people who had no reason to protect them. The meeting happened a few days later. I went alone. I brought every document I had collected. Organized, labeled, clear. I answered questions simply. Yes, no. I did not sign this. This is not my account. These are my actual records. Nothing more. They asked about my relationship to the others involved. I answered truthfully. Then I stopped. I did not add emotion. I did not defend myself. I let the documents speak. When I returned home, the house felt smaller. They were all there, waiting without saying they were waiting. No one asked how it went. No one needed to. The next few days unfolded quietly. Not dramatic, just steady. Calls increased, not just from banks. Other institutions began reviewing linked information. Patterns were being checked beyond what I had filed. What they built was connected. And now those connections were being examined. I noticed something else. People outside the house started to know. Not details, not full stories, but enough. A relative called, asking vague questions about financial issues. A neighbor mentioned seeing someone official at the house. Small signals that things were no longer contained. Reputation does not collapse in one moment. It shifts. People become careful around you. Conversations change tone. Trust pulls back. I saw it happen slowly. Inside the house, no one tried to explain anymore. There were no more soft excuses, no attempts to minimize. Just distance, the kind that grows when the truth cannot be avoided. One evening I found my mother sitting alone, holding one of the letters. She looked up at me, like she wanted to say something. She did not. I did not stop. Because at this point, words did not matter. Everything that needed to be said was already written, and everything they tried to hide was now being read by people who would decide what came next. I went back to my room, closed the door, and sat in the quiet, not relieved, Not satisfied, just aware. This was no longer in my hands. And for the first time, it did not need to be. The final decisions did not come all at once. They arrived in pieces. First, the accounts were cleared from my name, one by one. Each confirmation felt quiet, no relief, just a slow return of something that had been taken without permission. Then came the formal findings. The signatures were not mine. The authorizations were invalid. The accounts had been opened and managed without my consent. It was written clearly, in language that did not leave space for interpretation. Responsibility shifted where it always belonged. I read the documents alone. I did not share them. I did not need to. They already knew. What followed was not loud. There were no scenes, no final confrontation, just consequences unfolding in a way that could not be stopped. Their accounts were reviewed next. Access restricted, transactions questioned. The same process I went through, now applied to them with more weight. Institutions do not move fast, but they do not forget either. Patterns were confirmed, not just once repeated. That changed everything. Opportunities closed around them, quietly. Requests denied. Applications stalled. Conversations that used to be easy became formal, cautious, distant. Trust does not break with noise. It disappears in silence. My father stopped receiving calls he used to expect. My mother no longer spoke about plans or future events. My sister withdrew completely, avoiding any space where she might have to meet my eyes. I watched it happen without stepping in, not because I wanted distance, because there was nothing left for me to fix. At some point, there was a legal step, required, documented, statements taken, evidence reviewed again, this time with final weight. I answered the same way I had from the beginning. Clear, direct, without emotion. Yes, no, this is not mine. I did not raise my voice. I did not need to. The truth had already settled into every part of the process. When the outcome came, it was final. Liability placed where it belonged. Penalties assigned. Restrictions that would not be lifted easily. Records that would follow them longer than any explanation could reach. Irreversible. That is the part people do not talk about. Not the moment of exposure, not the reaction, but what comes after. When everything is recorded and nothing can be undone. The house changed after that. Not in structure, in feeling. It became a place where no one stayed longer than necessary. Conversations are reduced to the smallest possible exchanges. Doors closed more often, time passed without connection. We existed in the same space, but not in the same life. They never tried to explain again. Not to me. Maybe because there was no version of this that could be explained. Maybe because they understood that I would not accept anything less than the truth they had already denied. I thought I would feel something stronger when it was over. Anger, relief, even satisfaction. But what stayed was something quieter. A kind of clarity. I saw them as they were. Not the version I trusted. Not the version I defended in my own mind. Just who they chose to be when it mattered. And I saw myself clearly too. Not weak for trusting. Not foolish for believing in them. But responsible for what I accepted without question. That part stayed with me longer than anything else. I moved my life forward slowly. New accounts, new plans, careful steps. Everything built again, but differently this time. With boundaries that did not move. With trust that had to be earned, not assumed. We still shared a last name, but nothing else felt shared anymore. One evening, I passed through the living room and saw them sitting together, quiet, separate even in the same space. The distance between them felt wider than anything I had seen before. For a moment I stopped. Not to speak, just to see. This was the result. Not something I created. Something they built themselves, piece by piece, choice by choice. I turned away without a word, because there was nothing left to say. The truth had already done everything I could not. And it did it without raising its voice.